Greetings, fellow classmates, and to our teacher, Mr. Richie Lauren. I hope that every one of us is doing well and are ready to proceed to our 8th topic, which is the disability categories. I am Riza May and Tabacol, and now we will proceed. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or the IDEA, requires public schools to provide free and appropriate education to eligible students, but not every child who struggles in school qualifies. To be covered, a child's school performance must be adversely affected by a disability in one of the 13 categories below. Here, we have first the specific learning disability, or the SLD. This refers to a disorder in one or more of the basic processes involved in understanding or using language, spoken or written, that may manifest itself in an imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, spell, or perform a mathematical calculations. Here are some examples of what could fall into this category. We have first the dyslexia. Dyslexia is the specific learning disability in reading where children affected with dyslexia find it very difficult to read. It occurs in children with normal vision and intelligence. Second is the dysgraphia. The dysgraphia is a specific learning disability that affects written expressions. For example, difficulties with spelling, poor handwriting, and trouble putting thoughts on the paper. Then we have the dyscalculia. This is a specific learning disability that causes difficulty in learning arithmetic, understanding numbers, and doing mathematical calculations. And it is said that about 3 to 6% of population is affected with some degree of dyscalculia. Lastly, we have the developmental aphasia. This is an impairment of language affecting the production or comprehension of speech and the ability to read or write. Aphasia is always due to injury to the brain, most commonly from a stroke, particularly in older individuals. The SLD is the most common category under the IDEA. In the year 2018 to 2019 school year, it is said that around 33% of students who qualify did so under this category. Next, under these categories, we have the other health impairment. The other health impairment category covers conditions that limit a child's strength, energy, or alertness. One example is the ADHD, which impacts attention and executive function. Other health impairments are such the ADD, or attention deficit disorder, and AH, or HD. This one describes a neurological condition with symptoms of inattention, distractibility, and poor working memory. Then we have the diabetes. This is a disease that occurs when your blood glucose, also called the blood sugar, is too high. Then we have the epilepsy. This is a central nervous system neurological disorder in which brain activity becomes abnormal, causing seizures or periods of unusual behavior, sensations, and sometimes loss of awareness. Then we have the heart conditions. This talks about any disorder that affects the heart. Then we have the hemophilia, usually inherited bleeding disorder in which the blood does not clot properly. Then we have the lead poisoning. This occurs when you absorb too much lead by breathing or swallowing a substance with lead in it. We could get this from such as the paint, the dust, water, or even the foods. Because as you can see, lead is a very damaging substance that causes the organ system to malfunction. Then we have here the leukemia, a cancer of the body's blood-forming tissues, including the bone marrow and the lymphatic system. nephritis, which is the inflammation in the kidney. Then, we have the rheumatic fever disease that can affect the heart and joints, brain, and skin. This one occurs when the scarlet fever infection and the strep throat is not cured properly. Then we have the sickle cell anemia. This one is an inherited red blood cell disorder in which there aren't enough healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen throughout our body. And lastly, the Tourette syndrome, a disorder that involves repetitive movements or unwanted sounds such as tics that can't be easily controlled.
Good day everyone, I am Prince Keller Sikamana and this is my report. Autism Spectrum Disorder or ASD. Autism Spectrum Disorder or ASD is a developmental disability that can cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. There is often nothing about how people with ASD look that set them apart from other people, but people with ASD may communicate, interact, behave, and learn in ways that are different from most other people. The learning, thinking, and problem-solving abilities of people with ASD can range from gifted to severely challenged. Some people with ASD need a lot of help in their daily lives, others need less. Autism spectrum disorder is a brain development disorder that affects how a person perceives and interacts with others, resulting in social interacting and communication issues. Limited and repetitive patterns of conduct are also part of the illness. Some persons with ASD require a great deal of assistance in their daily life. Emotional disturbance. Emotional disturbance means a condition exhibiting one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to make a marked degree that adversely affect a child's educational performance. An inability to learn that cannot be explained by intellectual, sensory, or health factors. An inability to build or maintain satisfactory interpersonal relationships with peers and teachers. Inappropriate type of behavior or feelings under normal circumstances. A general pervasive mood of unhappiness or depression, a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with personal or school problems. The term emotional disturbance includes schizophrenia. It does not apply to students who are socially maladjusted unless it is determined that they have an emotional disturbance. Emotional disturbance is defined as a condition that exhibits one or more of the following qualities over time. And failure to learn caused by circumstances other than intellectual, sensory, or health, inability to form or sustain satisfying interpersonal ties with classmates and teachers under regular conditions, inappropriate forms of conduct or feelings and others. Speech or language impairment. This category covers difficulties with speech or language. A common example of stuttering. Other examples are trouble pronouncing words or making sounds with a voice. It also covers the language problems that make it hard for kids to understand words or express themselves. Articulation speech impairment, where the child produces sounds incorrectly. Lips, difficulty articulating certain sounds such as I or R. Fluency speech impairments, where child's flow of speech is disrupted by sounds, syllables, and words that are repeated, prolonged, or avoided, and where there may be silent blocks or inappropriate inhalation, exhalation, or phonation patterns. Voice speech impairment, where the child's voice has an abnormal quality to its speech, resonance or loudness, and language. Language impairments, where the child has problems expressing needs, ideas, or informations, and or in understanding what others say. The term speech or language impairment refers to problems with speaking or language. Stuttering is a common example. Other examples include difficulty pronouncing words or making vocal sounds. It also addresses language issues that make it difficult for children to comprehend words or express themselves. Articulation speech disorder in which a kid produces sounds wrongly. Articulating specific sounds like I or Fluency communication defeats in which a child flow of speech is disrupted by repeated protracted or avoided sound syllables and phrase, as well as silent blocks or improper inhalation, exhalation, or phonation patterns. Voice speech defects in which the pitch, resonance, or loudness of the child's voice has unnatural characters, and language impairments are those in which a kid has difficulty expressing one's thoughts or information as well as understanding what others are saying.
So, good day everyone. My name is RJ Marinay from G-8. So, in visual impairment, including blindness, a child who has eyesight problems is considered to have a visual impairment. This category includes both partial sight and blindness. If I were to correct a vision problem, then it doesn't qualify. So students must be able to see clearly, focus on object and far and near, be able to coordinate hand and eye, discriminate small differences, and remember what they see. Visual impairment which is severe enough to interfere with progress is normal educational programmers is considered a visual handicap. So visual impairments include low vision and blindness. This refers to any degree of impairment to a person's ability to see that affects his or her daily life. So next is deafness. Deafness is defined as a hearing impairment that is so severe that the child is impaired in processing linguistic information through hearing. With or without amplification, hearing loss or deafness does not affect a person's intellectual capacity or ability to learn. So deafness is profound hearing loss which indicate a complete loss of hearing ability in one of both ears. Untreated hearing loss causes delays in the development of speech and language. And those delays then lead to learning problems, often resulting in a poor school performance. And parents may not realize that their child can hear but not understand. Over time, though, it catches up to them in school. So there are four levels of hearing loss: the mild hearing loss, moderate hearing loss, severe hearing loss, and profound hearing loss. Hearing impairment. The term hearing impairment refers to a hearing loss not covered by the definition of deafness. This type of loss can change over time. Being hard of hearing is not the same thing as having trouble with auditory or language processing. So the term hearing impairment covers a spectrum from mild to profound. In some cases, it may exacerbate the effects on an individual's hearing disability because it may sometimes go unrecognized or undiagnosed with the behaviors associated with hearing loss being instead considered part of the learning disability. Number 9, deaf blindness. Deaf blindness is a combination of sight of hearing loss that affects a person's ability to communicate, access information, and get around. It's also sometimes called dual sensory loss or multi-sensory impairment. A deaf blind person won't usually be totally deaf and totally blind, but both senses will be reduced enough to cause significant difficulties in every life. These problems occur even if hearing loss and vision loss are mild, as the senses work together and one would usually help compensate or loss of the other. So the most common genetic cause of the deaf-blindness Usher syndrome without appropriate intervention. So this limited access leads to isolation that affects child's development and learning. The more severe a child's deaf blindness, the narrower the world from which can learn, and the more important the sense of touch becomes. So number 10, orthopedic impairment. Children be born with an orthopedic impairment, or they may acquire it at some point in life. Hereditary, congenital, and environment factors can play a role in causing orthopedic impairment that affect the normal functioning or the bones, joints, or muscles. For example, a child may be born with joint deformities, spina bifida, or muscular dystrophy. Acquired causes can include disease, injury, or surgery. Injury or surgery may lead to the loss of limb, muscles contractures, or bone loss that can make movement difficult. The orthopedic impairment disability category per IDEA includes or orthopedic impairments regardless or of cause. So, orthopedic conditions are injuries and disease that affect the musculoskeletal system. The body system includes the muscles, bones, nerves, joints, ligaments, tendons, and other connective tissues. Damage to any of these tissues or its structures can come from chronic orthopedic disease or from an injury. Students with orthopedic impairment do not have cognitive or learn problems. Some may experience related neurological or motor issues that can affect sensory processing, perceptions, and learning.
Good day, everyone. My name is Jandal Castro Roman from BEPED 2A, and I'm the last reporter for today. 11. Intellectual disability. Intellectual disability, or ID, is a term used when a person has a certain limitation in cognitive functioning and skills, including communication, social and self-care skills. This limitation can cause a child to develop and learn more slowly or differently than a typical developing child. Intellectual disability can happen any time before a child turns 18 years old, even before birth. According to the American Association of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, an individual has intellectual disability if he or she meets three criteria. Number 1. IQ is below 70 to 75. 2. There are significant limitations in two or more adaptive areas. Skills that are needed to live, work, and play in the community, such as community or self-care. And the last number 3 is the cognition manifests itself before the age of 18. So, intellectual disability, these contrasts can lead a child to develop and learn at a slower pace or in a different way than a typical child. Disability can occur at any age before a child reaches the age of 18. Well before birth, an individual has learning disability. Number 12. Traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury, or TBI, is a sudden injury that causes damage to the brain. It may happen where there is a blow, bump, or jolt to the head. This is a close head injury. A TBI can also happen when an object penetrates the skull. This is a penetrating injury. Symptoms of a TBI can be mild, moderate, or severe. Concussion are a type of mild TBI. The effects of the concussion can sometimes be serious, but most people completely recover in time. More severe TBI can lead to serious physical and psychological symptoms, coma, and even death. So, traumatic brain injury is a jolt to the head that causes brain damage. It can happen as a result of a blow, bump, or a jolt to the head. This is known as a close head injury. A TBI can also occur when such an object enters the skull. TBI symptoms can range from mild to severe. Concussion and other minor traumatic brain injury are examples of mild traumatic brain damage. Although concussion can be fatal, most people recover entirely over time. Number 13. Multiple disabilities. Multiple disabilities is a broad umbrella term meaning simply that the student has more than one disability. The specifics of these diagnoses are almost endlessly variable, and great care needs to be taken to adjust individual education support to the child needs. The cause of multiple disabilities is varied as the diagnosis itself. The cognition may be a result of a traumatic injury or TBI, or a genetic disorder, or a chromosomal abnormality or premature birth, developmental delay, etc. Children with multiple disability have a combination of more than one disability, such as intellectual disability, mobility issues, visual or auditory deficit, language delay, brain injury, and more. The term multiple disabilities does not specify which of the many possible disabilities a student has, nor does it specify how severe those disabilities are. The specifics vary greatly by the individual. So, multiple disabilities is a broad word implying that the student is struggling with a range of issues. Because of the complexity of these diagnoses are practically indefinitely diverse, and individualized educational support must be tailored to the child needs. The phrase many disabilities does not just indicate to the other conceivable problems a kid has, nor the severity of those concerned. The details vary widely depending on the individual. That's all for today. Thank you.